with TSA, it could be intimidating.
Yeah.
Like one guy was screaming at me, and I couldn't hear him. But I like pointed and I was like, I'm deaf. He was like, oh, I hope you have a great day.
Oh. Hello and welcome to Beyond Me, the show where mechanical engineering students go beyond ME, and where the things we talk about are beyond us. We like thinking broader, we like thinking deeper. I'm Ben Jacobson, here with my co-host Liam Bennett.
What's up? Today we're talking with Nathan Templeman about his experiences doing stand-up comedy, ultimate Frisbee, and education, and how being deaf shapes that. And special thanks to Kaylee for doing sign language interpreting for this episode.
Let's get into it. All right, Nathan, thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's cool to be here. I look forward to our discussions.
Awesome. Yeah, do you want to just give us a quick background? Who are you? What do you do? Just give us a quick little overview.
Sure. So my name is Nathan. I am a fourth year in interior design, and I am deaf. I play Frisbee on the same team as our host here. Bryce.
Shout out to the Fries.
Shout out to the team. I also do stand-up comedy.
Nice.
So with the same interpreter that you're hearing right now.
Nice.
Which is awesome.
Awesome. So you guys are pretty used to working with each other.
Yes.
Then, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Where do you perform stand-up?
Normally, like downtown Rochester. So one of them is Boulder Cafe. And they do stand up on Mondays. So my interpreter has a class on Mondays now, but now they do it Wednesdays as well. So we're thinking about getting that coordinated.
Nice. And what got you into stand-up comedy?
Yeah. So I've always been told I'm funny. I have an interesting sense of humor, and my family is sick of me. But my friends find me weird, so that's why I do stand-up. To show off my comedy skills and my weird jokes to all of the different people.
And how long have you been doing it for?
Ever since last summer. It was interesting because it can be hard to find an interpreter to voice for me for stand-up. So, and also I'm from Seattle, so that is way harder to find an interpreter.
Oh, right.
Cool. And also if there is a club, community, a cub. Sorry, one moment. Interpreter error.
No worries.
Oh, club.
A comedy club willing to pay for an interpreter.
That's nice.
So I finally found an interpreter last summer who was willing to do it for free before I would continue. So clubs are required to pay for the interpreter,
right?
Because of the ADA law. So,
oh, wow.
But they do ignore my emails.
Okay.
So that's why it's hard to find an interpreter, and I want to find someone that will be willing to do it for free. But here in Rochester, it's more accessible because there are more people who understand, deaf rights and all of that here.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting because, like, you have the Americans with Disabilities Act, and so I guess, by that law, the like hosting the hosting organization, the business is responsible for providing that, but sometimes it's easier for them to just sort of ignore it because they don't want to spend the money or this or that. So has that been like a big challenge for you?
Yeah, it definitely has. When I took my driving class, I delayed me 2 years because there was the driving school where my sister had gone. My sister is older than me, so she had gone previously. And then my mom wanted me to go to the same school because they had good reviews and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then the organizer said that it was too much money to afford an interpreter. So I had to wait. And they made me lose money. It's a little bit like unclear on the details, but basically what happened was there's just like, so we had to sue, and finally they agreed to provide me an interpreter. So I took my first driving class at 17, which is unfortunate because it was delayed.
Wow.
So you had to sue to be able to get to that point. Wow, they'd have to go through that. That's awful. Wow, well that's
The owner said that in order for me to sit in the class, for the full class, they'd be just reading the book. So not anything I'm missing too much. So I don't know.
Wow, though. Geez, well, I'm curious if we can go back to stand-up comedy for just a second. Stand-up is really intense. I know people say that's like really scary. I don't know. For myself, I'd have a hard time getting on stage and doing that.
Oh yeah.
And then you have an extra added layer of having an interpreter there too, which just kind of makes the whole thing probably more difficult to coordinate and make the timing of jokes work. Like, have you had a lot of luck like that? Like, when you do this, do you go to open mics, or do you actually schedule slots, or how does that work?
Yeah. So there are 2 challenges with having an interpreter. The first is my jokes might sound a little weird.
Right.
Like during my first stand-up, I talked about missile.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Good pickup.
Yeah, good. So how does that connect to my?
We'll have to mute this.
That was my first stand-up, so. So I connected that to my first stand-up.
Got it.
The interpreters don't always know what I'm saying, as you can tell. That just happened. So when I have a script, that helps.
Interesting.
So you can give them the script so they at least know what to expect. That makes more sense. Yeah, that's.
Yes, exactly. So that normally does help. And then the second challenge, normally there's a delay. So it's called lag time with the interpreters. And that's where they're catching up to the message. So it can be hard to navigate that because you have to be close to the message to be able to get the jokes to land.
Yeah.
So when I do stand up, I do like a walk-in slot where I write my name. So it's nothing fancy, but it does the job.
Yeah, of course.
And so when you're delivering jokes, I mean, like you said, of course, you have that lag time. So how is that, like, does that sort of change your jokes? Do you take that into consideration when you're writing them? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's the challenge. When I make jokes with my family and friend, it's flowing nice. So when I write a script, that helps.
Mm-hmm.
I do have to imagine feeling myself there. It's not the same energy like when I'm just writing alone, so.
Right.
It also does change my jokes because when I do have an interpreter, I have to learn to work with the interpreter.
Yeah.
And trust them.
Yeah, of course.
That way they're able to deliver my jokes on time. And that takes a lot of trust.
Yeah. And I also imagine, like, when you're delivering a punchline, usually you get that reaction immediately from the audience, like that they like it, and so you can sort of use that to kind of maybe like change the way you do the next one. So having that delay, like you might not know if a joke landed until 5 seconds later, right? So like that's also got to be tough in terms of like just knowing how you're doing, right?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the challenges. When it comes to stand-up, I have to really pay attention to the audience. I don't pay attention to the audience. I try to focus on the interpreter. So when I'm watching like the video, that is when I'm able to see what worked and what didn't work.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting.
So it's a pretty interesting experience in person, and then I also would film and like watch a video later to see.
And I was watching one of your stand-up videos, and I noticed that you actually, did you have 2 interpreters for that?
Yes. That was my first time in Rochester, so I did have, I did it one time in Seattle too, but the first time in Rochester I did. The second time in Rochester was a challenge. That I thought that the time was 5 minutes, but it was actually shorter. It was 4 minutes. So we had to change our script last minute, and like it was pretty stressful.
That sounds really stressful. Oh, wow, though.
Yeah. That's like I was rushing kind of through the script to make sure everything was good. So even if we changed just one thing, it could kind of mess up the flow of everything.
Right.
Oh, wow.
But for that, did I see it correctly? Did you have 2 people interpreting, or was it just one?
I did have 2 interpreters, but then the last time I only had 1 interpreter. And it was more smooth because that interpreter had a little bit more experience.
Okay. So when you...
And more trust. I trust them more.
And when you have 2, like what are each of their roles? Like do they both do the same thing, or?
Yeah, so my first time in Seattle, I was last in the list. So I did have 2 interpreters going back and forth. They would be interpreting what the performers before me were saying. But in Rochester, it needs more support, I would say. For the first time that I did in Rochester, my interpreter had done it only that one time. So that was another challenge. So it really does depend on the situation you're in and the interpreters you're working with.
How many people were in the audience in either of those times, if you had to guess? I'm just curious.
I would say about maybe 30 to 40 people in Rochester.
Yeah, that's...
And then in Seattle, it was a little bit bigger. And it was more formal in Seattle.
That's intense, though. Yeah, wow.
Did they like it?
Yeah, we'll see about it. I don't know. The best part is when people don't laugh at jokes. You know what doesn't work.
Yeah. And
that helps you to be more funny next time.
Absolutely.
So I enjoy the challenge.
Yeah, okay. Wow. Well, yeah, would you tell us about some of the other activities you do? Specifically, maybe tell us about your major, or do you do any other clubs?
Yeah, sure. So a little bit about my major. My major is interior design, and it's fun. I really enjoy designing. When you're designing spaces, that can be very challenging. You have to think about where the room is, then lighting, and safety. Fire escape, let's say. So those are all things you think about. You also have to consider like material that you're using. Is it safe for humans? for them to breathe? Like, would it give them issues? Or maybe if a fire happens, is it gonna, catch flame?
Sure.
Absolutely.
And so do you do a lot of like, I'd imagine you do that a lot on computers, like 3D modeling of spaces?
Oh, yeah.
Like you have like a bunch of materials and you're like putting them like couch here, bed. Like what does that actually look like? What is the job of I mean, I guess you're still in school, so you might not know, but what does the job of an interior designer actually look like?
Yeah, that is my least favorite part, to be
Oh, okay.
honest. I'm like not the best with technology, so that was a challenge. When we had to do the first and second year, you do a lot of 3D modeling. You have to do a 3D display in Revit.
Yeah, I've used Revit.
And Adobe as well. So,
Okay.
and Photoshop. So
okay.
different applications. I learned all of those.
Yeah.
But yeah. In Revit, it's fun to design. But the software is so annoying. One little mistake and you have to change or like go back so many steps. So it can be really annoying.
Yeah.
And you can miss details sometimes.
Remember, I had to design a house in Revit for a club when I was in high school, and I didn't enjoy it very much.
No.
I found the software to be kind of clunky, and it was unintuitive. It didn't make sense to me. But yeah, so I can totally see that. Yeah.
Yeah. For now, I'm used to Revit. So in my school, we use that like as our main technology. So
Okay, yeah.
there are different softwares. SketchUp
Oh yeah, I've used
and
Gotcha.
AutoCAD.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, those two are much more user-friendly.
Interesting. Well, yeah, SketchUp, you have to do things a lot more manually. So SketchUp, you're actually like placing lines and stuff to make bodies out of scratch, whereas Revit's like, yeah, it's all pre-packaged in, and you have to use all of Revit stuff, it seems like, or you have to download packages of stuff rather than being able to just make stuff from scratch like SketchUp. I don't know if that's your experience, but that's mine with those two softwares.
Yeah, mine's
right?
the same experience. With Revit, it's all about technology or technical.
Yeah.
So you really have to understand before you apply the different things.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've watched many tutorials on it.
Okay. Yeah.
But with SketchUp, it's just more straightforward. You can just, it's more visual and more friendly to the user. Like there's one thing, you can see the icons, and so you would know like what it means. So that is definitely much more helpful than Revit.
Gotcha.
Like yeah, they're just, you can look at them and you're like, oh, I know what this does. This is just a common item, or just like like a hand move stuff for a little. The revolve tool looks like you're revolving something, or yeah, it's just intuitive. But what are some other parts of your major that are you like more? Or, like, what's your favorite part?
The ironic part is I do love to design on Revit.
Nice.
Huh.
Okay.
That's the funny part. Fun part, excuse me.
Yeah.
That's because I can put in my ideas and just play around with a room, kind of design it how I want. So it's a little ironic. I have a love-hate relationship with Revit.
That
Interesting.
makes sense.
So when I think about interior design, I guess I think about like Joanna Gaines on HGTV. But you know, this makes me think a lot more about like what actually goes into it. It's not just making things look nice. It's thinking about, like you said, the safety, the fire, the utility. And we were talking about this the other day actually, but you were saying how obviously there's not just home interior design, but there's commercial buildings and for different things. So which of those is your favorite?
Yeah, that's the challenge. Finding out what I connect to is pretty difficult. I feel like with home design, it is a challenge. You have to understand your consumer, and that's the biggest thing. So you almost have to be a therapist
Interesting. Yeah.
with communication and with commercial. Excuse me. So with commercial, it's more formal
Yep.
and professional.
Well, I bet you know what the commercial places are looking for. Like if they want like a lobby or something, you know what kind of vibe that should have. Whereas I'd imagine with someone's home, you're right, they have so many different interests and they have more personal use cases for it. You really have to get in their head, I'd imagine. Yeah, that's
Exactly that. When you're designing a home, you really have to ask your consumer about everything. How do you use your house? Like, what do you want to see inside? What do you want to remove?
yeah.
What's your favorite color?
Yeah.
So, how much light do you want? Do you want it to be really bright, really not? So there's a lot of things.
So I'd imagine a lot of the home design is meeting with the client and like really sort of getting to know them and knowing their tastes.
Of course.
As opposed to like
Definitely.
an airport maybe would probably be a lot different. It was, well, I guess
Who designed those chairs in the airports? I find those kind of uncomfortable.
well, I guess that wouldn't that's not really your realm, right?
I don't know,
Designing
yeah.
Of course.
I don't think so. I'm still new, so like maybe it could be. But I think it's mostly like engineers
Yeah, hate those guys.
that design those.
Dude.
They
That's
don't know.
us.
They don't know
Did
what
we
they're
design
doing.
the chairs wrong?
Maybe.
Oh no. Well, yeah. So which side of? Oh yeah.
My dad's an engineer, so
Okay, blame
very
him.
cool.
Yeah.
yep.
Which side of industrial and kind of a homey interior design are you more interested in? Did you say?
I would say commercial.
Yeah.
That is more thinking about your brand.
Hmm.
So, like, you're able to be creative in those ways, and that shows off your brand. Compared to a home interior design, like I do love to and do interior design for home. It's fun, but I don't always, I'm not always ready to talk with consumers, I would say.
Oh, that's true. That's another aspect of it, of course, is, like here at RIT, you have great support of having interpreters pretty much readily available for you. But when you go into industry, have you thought about like how that access is going to change?
Yeah. Sometimes I do worry about that. I do have hearing friends who don't know ASL. And so I use like closed captions, you can
Right.
see right here.
Right.
And so I'm more comfortable with closed captions, I would say, because English is my first language. And ASL is like sort of still translating within my brain when I see it.
Oh.
So the challenge is that I can't speak for myself. Like this app, it will type everything out, but it's still missing that personal like
Of
feeling
course,
to
of
talk
course.
with someone, not like a automated voice. So that does make me a little bit nervous. It's just finding that right balance. Finding maybe an interpreter and then also using closed captions.
Right.
Just trying to find the most accessibility for myself.
Absolutely.
Wait, just one more thing on interior design. I'm curious. RIT has a lot of orange, and they work orange into every single design of everything. Every dorm, every lounge has to have a little bit of orange in it. How do you feel about that? Do you like that? No, yeah.
No,
okay.
I hate it.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Orange is a nice color.
Can
but
be.
RIT ruined it.
They ruined orange. Oh, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's...
President Munson, if you're hearing this, actually, well,
Yeah.
he's new president. If you're hearing this, Bill Sanders, if you're hearing this, maybe consider doing a little color change. Maybe make our RIT blue. I don't know.
like Beyond Me blue. Like there's a lot of other colors.
Maybe green. That would be a nice color.
Green is nice.
Green is nice with orange.
Interesting. Oh, green.
Really?
That's the one challenge of interior design is finding the right color match and color schemes.
I think starting with orange is just always going to fail, in my opinion.
Orange is not physically a bad color.
Well.
Orange scenery? Roll? I'm just going to type it out real quick. Secondary. It's a secondary color. So
interesting.
it's not the best color to work with.
So what is the best color to work with?
Or it's just not a good first color, primary.
Yeah, it's not a good first color to work with is orange. Like you could work with like specific shades of blue. Sometimes dark green, that works. Mostly you have to think about like the light, how it looks when you see it, because the light will like affect the colors. So when you're outside or if you're inside, that's going to look very different depending on the lighting.
Oh, so true.
Right.
So I know like a lot of modern homes are sort of shifting to a lot more straight edges, blockier looks, black and white. You know, like so. I'm looking at your face. You don't like that?
No, I don't. In my opinion, I think they're trying too hard to look good. To look like modern.
So it's like it's they're going too far. It's like
going
ultra
too
modern.
simple. I think is it like modern is really pretty simple. A lot of architecture, right?
Yeah.
And then just weird.
Yeah, it's just too standardized. Like it looks all the same. Bless you.
So,
thank you.
Do you have like a favorite? I mean, I guess this is sort of more into the architectural side, but do you have a favorite look? Like if you don't like modern, do you have a certain, like decade or era that you like the best or?
I love transitional and mixed and traditional and modern.
Ah.
I'm going to type this out real quick. One sec. Craftsman. There's a lot of wood and it feels more homey. So that's one of my favorite styles.
I like that too.
Mid-century as well. That's another style I like. So I'd say those two, Craftsman and mid-century.
Craftsman, mid-century.
Gotcha. But just not blocky white, like totally like all glass or all like, black and white with a Tesla in the driveway. I'm looking at Liam because
exactly.
I could see Liam's house being like that.
My dad is definitely into that architecture.
Yeah.
I used to be, but I like more classic stuff now a lot more.
Little
Started to
homier.
appreciate, a little cultured living space, homier, absolutely.
Of course.
Very nice.
Now you're not brainwashed anymore.
Yeah, I think so.
Hold on. I think he's still brainwashed by some other things, but maybe that's for another episode.
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
So you're also on the Frisbee team, as you mentioned. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I joined to play Frisbee for my first semester. Intramural.
Intramural, right.
So that's where I got involved. And so I've been doing that, and I really do enjoy it a lot. It's a great challenge. Communication is a little bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Like football is a little bit less communication. So, but with Frisbee, you really have to be letting each other know about stuff. Like, am I down the field? Am I, who's defending? Who's going for the play? So,
Wait, have you done football as well?
yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay.
I did.
Wow.
Flag football, I will
Flag
say.
football. Yeah, that's right.
Not, my mom wouldn't let me play with my cochlear implant. So
Gotcha.
Oh, that makes sense.
sometimes I wish I played
Really?
regular football because I think it would be fun to play in college football. That would be awesome.
But not at RIT though.
Well, we don't even have.
We're undefeated.
Wow.
We don't have a football team.
Yeah.
So how has your experience been? You've been playing Frisbee for what, 3-4 years?
About 3 years now.
Okay. And how has your experience been? Well, first of all, like, why did you stick with Frisbee? Like, what did you like about it?
I like the community.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like how there's so much running. You get a lot of activity. It
I don't
keeps
like
me in
that part.
shape.
You always seem pretty cool with running. I don't think I like running as much as you do.
No.
Like I'll see you like you're wearing like pants and like a sweatshirt and you're running like twice as fast as me on the field and like you're not sweating. And I'm like, what? How do you do that? It's like, do you run a lot like outside of Frisbee? Do you like running or you just?
No, I don't.
Oh wow, okay.
My dad, he sweats a lot. So I must not have gotten that gene from him.
Yeah, okay.
I'm lucky.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's really nice. Wow.
And so while you're playing Frisbee, like you said there were some communication challenges. What has been like sort of the biggest challenge in Frisbee for you in terms of that?
Yeah. Just knowing where to look.
Yeah.
Sometimes players will speak to you or like call out to you.
Yeah.
And you have to it can be overwhelming. You have to be very aware, looking around because you're moving fast. So that's one of the things that's hard. You don't have a lot of time to think, so that is difficult. But the more experience you get, it gets easier, less overwhelming to pay attention to the different cues on the field.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Once you have more experience, you kind of have a gut feeling, so it's easier to know where to be looking.
Yeah,
That makes
because
sense.
I mean, while we're playing, we'll usually we'll do a lot of calls, like mid play, we'll call up when the Frisbee's launch, so people on the field know where to look, or we'll sort of give cues to the people like where this is going to be thrown, where they can be defending. So for you, you're sort of relying on the visual cues. So I'd imagine there's a lot more scanning around because you can't have somebody call you from the back. Hey Nathan, look over here. You have to just sort of just be one step ahead.
Yeah, exactly. One example, when a player is like running deep,
Yeah.
like the Frisbee is
know.
going all the way to them. That I have learned to listen for a sound, shout.
Yeah.
So I'm looking,
Okay.
I'm listening for it. So it doesn't have to like be understood by me. I don't have to get what they're saying, but I'm just looking to hear
Okay.
for that sound. So if I hear them shout. And I'm reading what like the players are looking at, I guess.
Gotcha.
And so are you playing with your cochlear implant?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
I do.
So you do get some sound. Like how much sound do you get from that? Like from the words like you have it on now with the words we're saying, how much can you hear?
I am missing a lot of information is
Yeah.
mostly what it is, but I kind of do Like I've learned to listen for specific sounds.
I don't have to understand.
I don't have to fully understand
I
everything,
know.
but I kind of know the basics of what you're saying.
Oh, based at the situation.
And it's also based on the situation.
Right. So you have some of that contextual clues that help you understand us. So when I'm talking versus when Liam's talking, can you tell the difference in our voices?
Not only that.
Okay, count.
I can tell the difference, I guess, a little bit with the voice,
Right. It had to be something I know.
but it has to be something I know well or
Sure.
someone I know well.
Right. That makes
Gotcha.
sense. Yeah, you have to get really used to that. Yep.
It's easier for me to understand women voices.
Interesting.
It's more like I think it's something about their voice, just more loud maybe.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's the pitch.
Pitch.
Men have lower pitch in their voice as far as women have higher pitch, so it can be easier to understand women over men.
Well, I noticed when we were getting ready to record today, there was a high pitched sound that was made accidentally by the recording people, and you picked up on it immediately, like as soon as I did. So it was like, it's interesting.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
that. I can hear some of the sounds back there, but not always.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes I can understand what people are saying, like if they're back there, but
What's high
my
pitch?
favorite memory was in high school where I was trying out for a baseball team. My interpreter was attractive, so all of the guys on the team liked her. So when she arrived to interpret, I could hear them all saying, "She's here, she's here."
Oh my
I heard
God.
them all.
That is funny. So that's why you played baseball. No,
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's pretty funny though.
And were you born deaf, Nathan?
Yep, I was born deaf. So when my parents found out, I was only a few months old, about 3 months. I failed a hearing test. Every baby gets a hearing test, and I had failed it. So that was pretty hard for my parents because something about my deafness and my hearing loss is it can be genetic. It does vary.
Okay.
So it can be genetic or it could be random. In my class, in my family, we don't have a history of deafness.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So I was the first, and that was pretty frightening for my family.
Yeah.
Well, I'd
So
imagine. Yeah.
I was lucky because I was to be born into my family, and they were willing to move around the country. I think we moved twice to find the right education for me.
Right.
And that and both of my parents signed. So I don't remember the exact statistic. Maybe 40% of families, at least one parent knows ASL. It's not typical for both parents to know ASL and to use it.
with deaf children, you mean?
Yep, for deaf
with
children.
deaf children, really. So did they? So when they figured out you were deaf, did they learn it as quickly as they can and try to teach you it when you were very young?
Not well.
Okay.
Not immediately. Excuse me.
Okay.
So first they asked around, tried to get more information. My family's from Virginia, close to DC.
Okay.
And Gallaudet is there, which is the deaf college. So that is there's more resources there for deaf individuals. So they asked around there, and they learned about how to support me. I was in a program for children that were deaf at Gallaudet. So I'm partly lucky that I was born in that area because
Yeah.
I had a better experience with accessibility. And that area has more
Got it.
experience with deaf people. So accessibility wise.
Yeah.
And you got your cochlear implants pretty young as well, right?
That one.
Yep. About a year old, I got a cochlear implant.
And this is my second model.
I just got my second model last
This
year.
is my. So how the cooking.
So how the cochlear implant works is
Yeah.
This is my.
it is implanted into your head.
So
Yeah.
can manage the.
So it has sort of like a machine. You can see right here. It has a
Uh-huh.
magnet. So yeah.
And
Pretty
so
cool.
there's basically a microphone on that will send the signal directly to your brain, or sorry, to the cochlea. Or
This one. That my here 12. My here 12.
My eardrum doesn't work. So
Okay.
Like a zombie.
so it's kind of like a zombie.
My here 12.
Like my eardrum just does not work.
Oh, it hopes my.
But it helps my eardrum to work. So it kind of stimulates that. I think I'm not like an expert. I do not know all of the details, but that's the basic understanding. It kind of
Interesting.
yeah.
very interesting.
Oh wow! So it helps your eardrum work. Oh, interesting. Well, yeah.
So when your parents
Struggling with my headphones here.
when your parents learned sign language, did they learn ASL?
No. So they learned signed exact English. And my sister also learned it. Signed exact English is very different from ASL.
Okay.
ASL is a different language. It has structure and grammar. So for example, if you are asking for the bathroom, you say bathroom where. So that has
okay.
different structure, but in C, you would say where is the bathroom, and you would
Right.
sign every single word. So it's a code compared to a language.
Right. So sign exact English is like it has the exact same grammatical syntactical structure as English, and it's just like every word one to one has a match as a sign, right?
Yeah.
But with ASL, it's like it's a totally different structure. So was there a reason
Yep.
behind, learning one over the other?
Yeah, so my parents wanted me to learn C, signed exact English, because it's an important skill to learn English for school. A lot of deaf children don't have the best proficiency with writing skills and understanding English because they have ASL as their first languge.
Yeah, I
So
see.
that's why it's like you kind of you are learning a new language. For deaf kids, it depends on what signs they know and also what school you go to. I went to a signed exact English school.
Right.
So I'm not like, it's called capital D deaf. That is being involved in the deaf community, like when you identify as culturally being deaf. So technically, I'm not like capital D deaf because I learned C growing up.
Interesting.
Oh.
So you're not. Is that like you're not a like as in the deaf community if you understand the English language better? Is that you're saying, or is it because you don't know ASL, or you do know ASL? I mean, you know both, but you're saying because you also know SEE, or the one that's closer to spoken English, that makes it harder to be in the deaf community. What do you mean by that exactly?
Yeah, I can explain. It's a great question. So there is a social construct in the deaf community. So you have sort of like the top of the deaf community. That is someone who has fully deaf family, maybe generations of deaf individuals. They grow up with ASL, and their language is very pure, like native ASL. They probably go to a deaf school.
Okay.
Then you have sort of my class, where you're deaf, you're a deaf child born with 2 hearing parents, which is like 90% of them. You're not you are mainstreamed. You don't go to a deaf institute. So most of the time, I was the only deaf person in my program, and I was with most all hearing people.
And do people in your class tend to do SEE versus ASL?
Not always. Some people are really like great at ASL. Some mix and they know both. For me, I am slowly mixing ASL and C. I'm trying to improve my ASL from being RIT.
And right now, are you signing in ASL or in C?
What do you think, interpreter? Mixed. I'd say
Oh,
mixed.
very
So
interesting.
okay.
So a lot of the signs overlap, or
Yeah, that, and it's kind of hard because it's not the interpreter's fault that she's not understanding me. Just sometimes I'm not sure about the right signs. So sometimes there's that. Like C has different signs compared to ASL. So like with ASL, I don't know sometimes, and sometimes I have to like kind of make up a sign if I'm not sure. So like an example would be the sign for parents would be like in ASL, parents is like mom and dad with an open 5 hand shape like this, mom, dad. But my made up sign is like this, sort of an M on your chin, like for mom, and then a D on your head for dad.
Yeah, okay.
I had an interesting conversation with my deaf friend. Like, he said he liked my sign better because it makes sense.
All right, so whoever runs this ASL and SEE, whoever runs these languages, please consider changing that sign, because I like the way that Nathan does it too.
Yeah. There's not that many like strict rules in ASL and C, so it just depends on like a lot of things like region and stuff like that. So regionally they have accents, different signs for different things.
Whoa.
Like East Coast, they have some fast signing compared to West Coast, more formal signing.
Interesting.
But the West Coast is more like slow signing. So you can see stylistic differences depending on the region.
Very interesting. So if you were to just, sign with somebody and you didn't know where they were from, could you be able to sort of guess based on how they sign?
Not always, because I'm not the best like at ASL, so that's the one thing. I do want to improve that though, because sometimes it can be very easy. So to guess where people are from, it just depends. It's kind of like a gaydar, but sign-dar. Like you can kind of see.
Nice.
My sign-dar, it needs to improve a little bit, but it will.
That is funny.
Wait, can we just go back to the these classes of the deaf community? What I'm imagining when you're saying that is sort of like a social hierarchy within deaf communities.
That's what it sounds like.
And it sounds like the better you are at ASL, maybe the more you're respected. Is that have you found that to be the case, or what is that like, and what is it like talking with people through ASL that can't do C, or have the generational deafness like you've mentioned, or other scenarios where they're just completely in ASL?
Yeah, it's basically like a social basis. Like,
Okay.
for example, at Gallaudet, I went there 1 year before transitioning to RIT. So they were very strict about kind of social classes. There were some like sort of complications with those social classes. Like, one thing is, I'm a white man, so I was not trying to learn ASL at Gallaudet, But some people didn't have patience with me, excuse me. My friend who was Mexican and a woman, they were not patient with her. And she was actually trying to learn ASL. So it's interesting how those other identities can impact it. There's the intersectionality of it.
Oh, very interesting.
So you felt like it was easier to not have to be super good at ASL because of your like
ethnicity
and your gender.
Yeah, like when I was at Gallaudet, I just saw how different, like for example, Black deaf students, they're like sort of a separate group almost. And then there's like a deaf blind group at Gallaudet, and they're more like isolated, sort of like a group clique type thing. And I wasn't good at communicating with the deaf-blind group because when you sign with deaf-blind individuals, you use protactile sign. So you grab onto their hands, and that's how you understand, or they understand. So that was out of my comfort zone, is trying to communicate with people like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting, man.
That's interesting.
So have you figured that out? Have you ever tried to learn that, or is it like completely foreign to you? Like, is that something that's easier to pick up if you're already familiar with ASL or C?
For me, I'm like pretty clueless about it, but specifically, people are trained to learn protactile sign. Like I was on a deaf academic boat team that was in high school. So it's like hearing, like a just regular academic boat, if you know what that is, but for deaf people only. So it's the deaf academic boat. And my captain was deaf-blind. So I had to sort of learn how to navigate conversations with them and make sure that you're sitting right in front of them, have the appropriate lighting, because not all deaf-blind people are blind fully. So there's a certain proximity you sit near them, depending on their needs.
Very interesting.
Wait, so when you say boat, do you mean it like a boat? Like a...
No, like a... Oh, excuse me, bowl. That was an interpreter error.
Oh, okay.
Bowl. So like an academic bowl, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was like there was regional.
So you have a regional level.
Yeah.
West Coast.
On the West Coast. South, Northeast, like all the different regions. And then you have the nationals, which were at Gallaudet University for the academic bowl.
Is this trivia? Is that?
No.
Yeah, trivia.
Yeah, it was trivia.
Yeah, okay.
Good one, Liam.
Yeah,
good one.
Okay, that makes sense then. I was gonna say that the captain of the boat was deaf and blind. I was just gonna ask her how that would work.
Yeah, that would be cool. Hey,
like yeah.
I would be impressed.
A boat party all the time.
Yeah, I guess so.
So so when you're interacting with blind and deaf individuals, and like let's say they are completely blind and completely blind and deaf, and they really need, complete protactile. Is it protactile sign or protactile, like, what's the word for it?
I'm not sure what's the word.
Interpreter knows. It would be protactile sign.
Okay.
So there is protactile as well as just tactile.
Mm-hmm.
Protactile has other features that you add on, like using people's hands or backs to show where things are. But tactile is just using regular ASL, but they're feeling your hands while you're talking. So when you're finger spelling, they're feeling your hand.
Very interesting.
Okay.
So I mean, I'd imagine that's a much more intimate thing. Especially with a stranger. If you're just trying to communicate with a stranger, now all of a sudden you're touching their hands. That's gotta have a layer of awkwardness to it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I remember when my mom first met my captain. My team thought she was drunk because she was so awkward communicating with her. She was so like rocking back and forth and not knowing what to do.
That's very interesting.
But yeah, it's a great experience. It's more intimate, but you it's one of like, there's different classes, like I said, in the deaf community. So that's one group, the deaf blind group. So they're like, it's just another group of deaf people.
Yeah, okay.
And you were saying that it seemed like it was sort of cliquey, how you had, sort of people of each different ethnicities, different backgrounds sort of gravitating towards each other. Do you think that's just, like, what do you think caused that? Do you think that's like a precedent thing, or it's like what they're most comfortable with?
It depends really on where and their experience. A lot of deaf people don't have good experiences with hearing people. I don't. So it's sometimes more comfortable talking to I'm more comfortable talking to hearing people.
Like
I know how to be comfortable with hearing people,
So that's right.
but with those strict groups,
It's like a couple.
it's sort of like a comfort level. Like
Yeah.
they know that the people in their groups know sign, or
I feel not.
but like when I was at Gallaudet,
I feel not.
excuse me, if you were not at Gallaudet,
Like Seattle. Like I feel Seattle.
so for example, I'm from Seattle.
It's not that strict.
It's not that strict. Like they don't have those sort of cliques, but it is a small deaf community.
So kind of.
So that it just really relates on people's experience and what they feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
So like those cliques are at Gallaudet mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have that here at RIT? What is the deaf social scene like?
Kind of.
Yeah, a little bit.
Have some feeling.
I have some hearing friends, and then I have interpreter friends, and then I have some deaf friends. So there are sort of
You have a
little
mix.
groups like that.
Not much.
They haven't met each other most of the time, so it's like I'm part of each of these groups.
Yeah.
Oh, that
And-
makes sense. Okay.
And it's like different worlds in the same campus.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So do you observe the same sort of, I don't want to call it segregation, but the same sort of like group tendencies that you observed at Gallaudet? Do you observe that same behavior here at RIT?
Yes and no.
Yeah, yes and no.
There are some quite some
There are some like great deaf supporters, and
very much
great people who just want to help generally
help
and help people feel connected
Yeah.
and part of a group. But there's also some people that
stop people like stop people
deaf people have been affected by the pandemic. So there's a lot more social isolation when it comes to that recently happening. So it impacts their comfortability. Like new people and also being on campus, learning new people. So you sort of have the same groups. You have to sort of go out of your circle. You don't, excuse me, that's an interpreter error. You don't have to go outside of your circle, if that makes sense.
Okay. And are most of your deaf friends here, or do most of them know ASL or SCE or sort of a mix?
Most ASL, similar to Gallaudet, most of my friends grew up with hearing parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually sort of isolated from the deaf community. There's like kind of, so when it comes to RIT, they have NTID and RIT, and I'm cross-registered, so I'm sort of isolated in my program. I am a different like part of campus completely because NTID is on the other side. So I really only have 1 to 2 deaf people in my classes.
Oh, gotcha.
Interesting.
So I don't have the everyday experience like in the community, I would say.
Right, because some people who go here are purely strictly in NTID, but you're really, you're in like the just RIT institution, but you still have access to those same resources, which is good, but you're just not like, it's not like everybody in your classes and your instructors are all deaf people.
Yeah.
Like the password to be more.
The one thing that's great about NTID is they have a lot of clubs. So I'm able to join clubs if I want. So that's a great time.
Yeah, I always have something to say.
That's so fun.
So there's just like ASL, right? ASL American Sign Language. You have like each language, or I guess I'm assuming most languages have their own sort of version of sign language, right? Like you have French Sign Language or things like that. Do you know about that? Like if there's any similarities between ASL and the different sign languages, or?
Yeah, the funny thing is that ASL was inspired by French Sign Language.
Ah.
One deaf educator went to France around, I think, 1700, something like that. And France was really excelling in their deaf education. So there was a professor that went over to observe and wanted to apply some things to America, and then he came back and applied it. Like British Sign Language is very different from ASL. Typically, people use two hands or one hand in ASL, but with BSL, you have to use two hands for most signs and even like finger spelling and things like that.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. Yeah, because there's like the concept of cognates in languages where the same word across different languages may sound the same, right? So and I know that in sign language a lot of the signs are sort of based on more physical things. Like so a lot of the signs will be I don't have like a great example. I'm sure you can think
Maybe
of
a
many
D
examples.
looks like a D or something. Like it's
yeah,
a
like
simple
do you have
thing.
like what's an example of a sign that looks like what it is?
I have an extreme.
I have an extreme example.
Okay.
All right.
Is it an appropriate example?
No, it's appropriate.
Oh, don't worry,
Okay.
it's appropriate. It's a bit
Oh, disturbing?
disturbing.
No,
So in Japan, the sign for disabled is like
Oh my
cutting off
gosh.
their hands. I mean, their arms. So,
Got it.
Yeah, I know
That's-
there are some signs. Yeah.
and I know there are some signs there that they use the middle finger, but not like we don't use that in ASL. So I don't know those signs, but I don't remember them. Excuse me. But using the middle finger in like Japanese Sign Language is acceptable because that's
Got it.
one of the things.
Got it. Yeah, I wonder like if it's easier, like let's say you know ASL or SEE, if it's easier to pick up on different sign languages as opposed to just being a regular English speaker picking up on some foreign language, since you have that sort of visual similarity, maybe.
Kind of.
A little bit.
Like,
I would say it is more based on culture
Mm-hmm.
and background.
Like, okay, with Japan.
Like again with Japan, that sign being like disabled in that way, it's based on perspective of disabled people. So I think in the US, this is me. I'm not speaking for all of the United States people, but I think the attitude towards disabled people is more progressive, more accepting. So it's more like a more positive view, I would say, compared to Japan.
Interesting.
Have you ever traveled abroad?
Only Canada.
In Canada.
But I am flying to Japan
Ah.
next fall. So
So
wow,
you can
okay.
you can give them the disabled sign, cutting your arms off, and they'll know exactly what you Nice.
exactly. I can just walk into public doing it.
That's funny.
Oh wow, though. But yes, how is Canada's infrastructure and I guess not infrastructure, but culture around deaf and translating?
That's a hard question.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a difficult question because I don't have a ton of
Right,
experience with
yeah.
their translation, but
But it could depend.
it really could depend on
like knowing the culture
knowing the culture, like I said,
and knowing the sound.
and also knowing like their signs.
Like a guy with the stand up.
Again, with stand up,
It's content.
it's a context. So knowing more about that background and stuff.
That's my assumption.
That would be my assumption.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And what are you going to Japan for?
Well, my parents.
So my parents, their gift for graduation is to take a trip to Japan.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Also, my grandma is from.
Also, my grandma's from Japan, so
Oh, nice.
that's part of the reason why my dad wants to go visit where his family's from. So
Very cool.
and my great grandpa was a mafia boss in Japan.
Whoa.
Oh, very nice.
I mean,
great
that's
great grandma or grandpa.
grandpa.
Oh, I heard Mr. Oh, yeah.
That would be crazy.
Wow. That's. Yeah, I really want to go to Japan at some point. I haven't been to Asia, but I feel like that'd be incredible. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
bet you're excited for that.
I'm just hoping there's no earthquake while I'm there.
Yeah.
True.
Fingers crossed. Well,
I wonder, like, we talked a little bit about deaf accessibility when we talked about your stand-up comedy. What has your experience been like, just like, I guess day-to-day life, like outside of RIT where you have a lot of support, maybe you're like, let's say in the airport or like just like in a store, are you really just sort of relying on your phone?
No.
Oh yeah, definitely. In Seattle, I joined a Frisbee game for fun.
Nice.
And I have like my closed caption out to be able to communicate. Because I'd like to let people know like I'm deaf ahead of time. So that is a challenge of being deaf, is letting people know before you are acting, or some people may like assume that they can't talk to you. So you have to kind of change that perspective and make a good first impression. Show them that like, hey, I'm deaf, but you can still talk to me.
Yeah.
When I was at the hot tub at the RIT gym, I didn't have my CI in. So
right.
Yeah.
one guy decided to talk to me, and I could not understand him. I did not have my phone either. So he was thinking I was rude, but really I just didn't understand.
Oh, man.
So it's pretty much 24/7. You have to kind of rely on
Yeah,
things
absolutely.
like that. And you have to be alert, too.
Yeah. So, do you find that your other senses are like heightened? Because I've heard that like, sometimes like your senses can sort of compensate. Like, do you have like really good eyesight?
Yeah, I'm getting more.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm more visual. Like
Where I'm look at this.
when I'm looking at,
The sunset.
the sunset, I notice a lot of specific colors and things like that. That people they don't look at fully, but I notice them.
I'm from the West Coast.
I'm also from the West Coast, like
Right.
I said. So with the fires, forest fires,
With the smoke of this.
seeing the smoke in the sky,
I can notice that more.
I can notice how much smoke, like much more easily than other people.
Right.
Interesting.
By the
So
way,
more visual.
I just learned 5 seconds ago that the sign for smoke is like holding a cigarette in front of your mouth, which I think is amazing.
This is a cool sign.
Yeah, it's a
Good
pretty cool
catch.
sign.
Yeah, no, I'm
yeah.
perceptive.
Oh,
William.
wow.
Come on.
Okay. I'm listening.
Sometimes I do this just for fun.
Sometimes I do it just for fun
We're out. Home in my home.
because you can pretend to smoke a cigarette without hurting your health.
Nice. What was I gonna say? So,
Oh, well, what?
One more thing I want to say
yeah.
about being deaf out of campus. So
I have to kind of
I kind of have to identify as deaf at TSA.
Like I'm like.
So like on my ticket,
Yeah.
when you're getting it to go to the airport,
Leaving.
and when you're leaving the plane,
Sympathizer wheelchair.
sometimes it's like the wheelchair, like,
Because you're disabled.
excuse me,
get
sometimes
to
they
go on early?
bring you a wheelchair because they think that you need it because you're physically disabled, but really I'm just
Oh.
deaf.
Not much about this.
Kind of
So-
annoying.
That's
Yeah.
not everyone who's disabled needs a wheelchair.
I guess so.
So, in general, do you find the support in like, you know, government agencies or things like airports? Do you find it good, or they sort of don't really know what they're doing? Like, I guess that's a good example. That's an example of them not really knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It's a big kid.
with TSA,
Could be same. It's a big kid.
one sec, I'll type it out. With TSA, it could be intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like one guy was screaming at me, and I couldn't hear him. But I like pointed and I was like, I'm deaf. He was like, oh, I hope you have a great day.
Oh.
So, and he was like, I'm so sorry. Like, my apologies. You
Yeah.
could tell he felt embarrassed. It's funny how people change when they realize that you're not being rude, you're just
yeah.
deaf.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, please don't watch.
Or when I visit restaurants,
There was a
Menu?
no, there was one of them.
to order, one sec, I'm going to type it out. A receipt.
It says stuff nothing. It's the stuff nothing. Nothing. My name's
Would they
call me. stuff
called me
nothing.
deaf
Nothing.
Nathan on the receipt.
Oh.
How does that feel?
I'm nothing.
You,
No.
I love it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's funny.
I'm seriously thinking about chasing me. I'm seriously thinking about.
I'm
chasing
seriously
me.
thinking about changing my name to
Just
Deaf
that
Nathan.
Hey,
So you have a
that
pretty
way-
good sense of humor about
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that's
That way,
nice.
no matter what, on any airplane ticket, it'll
Right, it's
always
just
say
deaf
deaf
Nathan.
on it. So then you'll be covered.
Deaf Nathan.
It was another confusion.
And it'll save a lot of time communicating. So
Yeah, that's funny.
And so you do some reporting or part of a magazine? Is that or a newspaper? mean, not
yeah, for the
magazine.
newspaper on
Newspaper.
campus. The reporter.
No,
So what do you do for that?
no, so oh,
Yeah, so I both write and I manage articles,
I don't.
edit articles.
No, like my jobs.
So my job is editor.
It was
Oh, sick.
interesting.
So it's a pretty interesting experience. It's a little bit weird for me, hearing, like, having people have to listen to my suggestions on how to improve their articles. So it's pretty weird.
And so a lot of that is like going in and tweaking the way things are written or grammar. Like, is that sort of your main job?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And like looking at the structure of the articles
Yeah.
in different papers as well.
Yeah, like because with the articles,
With
you
articles,
have to put the
you have to have like really good emphasis
first impression.
and first impression.
Mm.
so people know.
So people know what they're reading about
it'd be interesting.
and be interesting. So that
Oh,
way
yes,
they'll
yes.
continue to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like, what kind of? I guess they cover all sorts of things. Like, what kind of topics? Or is it like a specific type of thing that you usually edit, or?
Well,
Normally I edit pretty generally. Like I would say sometimes there's specific topics.
I think it was on campus,
Like on campus enjoyment
the news.
or on
Yes.
campus news, excuse me.
That was my
So that's really my main area.
Very cool. Does that newspaper have a podcast? I feel like I've heard something about a reporter podcast.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
Do you know anything about it?
I know.
No, I know
Yeah.
nothing about it.
The reporters,
The reporter is with it's divided. So like they have the podcast side and they have the newspaper side. So mostly I know the people on the newspaper side.
Gotcha.
Oh, I see.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Yeah, wow. Well, since we're probably wrapping up somewhat soon,
Yeah.
I'd imagine, do you have any other major points you want to discuss?
I think maybe talking about like the philosophy behind being deaf.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have a minor in philosophy,
Right,
so
uh-huh.
it's something I'm pretty interested in. And I've taken classes from social contracts
Okay.
to pragmatism.
Okay.
So like applying a science similar to hypothesis. It's kind of similar to that. So how to improve yourself as a person.
Very interesting.
And how does this relate to being deaf specifically?
Yeah, so advocating for yourself. I feel like this
Yeah.
really ties in with that. When you comes to social contracts, you know, knowing how to work with different people and different rules, agreeing to keep keep or give up rights to be in a democracy, excuse me. So that applies to deaf people. Excuse me, it is different for deaf people. Interpreter mistake. Because they do need more support. And you have to think about how to speak for yourself and really advocate for your needs. But yeah.
Yeah. Seems like RIT does it really, I mean, it seems like they put a lot of work into it, at least at this school. It seems like there's lots of interpreters. Can you get an interpreter almost whenever you need one? Like for club events, like for this, and just in general, is it easy enough to get interpreters at RIT?
Yeah, so it does depend on when you request it. You have to request in advance, so like
Yeah.
a week ahead, and like figure out what time of the day it is, where is it. So like, for example,
For Frisbee.
for Frisbee,
Yeah.
most interpreters don't want to be out in the cold.
Right.
So it can be hard to find an interpreter.
And are most interpreters at the school students? Or are they part of the school? Like,
I would say most are graduated from RIT, and now they work for DAS. So like the
Okay.
interpreter I'm using right now is an interpreting student, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so, Kaylee, are you still in your undergrad here,
Yeah.
or?
Yeah.
And
So
this.
I'm in my undergrad here in my last year, and this final semester, you do a lot of hours interpreting and doing observations.
Gotcha.
So that's what I'm doing now.
Right, so this is
Yeah,
counting
okay.
as like your
Yeah.
towards your hours. Right.
That's
So
awesome.
it's like a win-win.
Yep.
Fantastic. So like going back to interpreting for Frisbee, is there something specific that an interpreter needs to know to be able to do that? Like, is there any differences between interpreting for Frisbee or versus like a regular class?
Yeah, they have to know specific jargon about Frisbee.
Yeah.
Like
Cutter.
handler,
Yeah.
and under. So they would have to know the right signs for all of those. And I'm not the best at giving examples, but because like the translation is, I only really know what people are talking about. The interpreter won't, they'll like translate it to their own words almost. So
Yeah. Right, because we use like specific signs for popper, wing, cutter. They're sort of like unique, so the interpreter might not know those signs. So that's
exactly
interesting.
that.
And we even
So-
have a hard time. I mean,
Well,
like a lot of people.
I'm actually
I know.
I'm doing
I'm sorry.
great.
I
No, I'm
know.
kidding.
I know poppers and winners. I don't know all of them though, and I should, but it's definitely a learning curve.
Yeah, actually, he's the
Yeah,
best.
he's definitely the best at that.
Yeah, I
Thank
imagine.
you,
I
Nathan.
imagine.
Wow, so
Clinton
kind.
puts the effort there.
You guys should keep a trophy.
You need a reward, a award,
A trophy.
a trophy.
trophy?
maybe.
Trophy.
I would take a trophy. No, I'm
Oh,
kidding.
Ben, they'll take a trophy.
But yeah, is there anything else that you like any sort of final thoughts? Do you have like maybe like a call to action or anything you want the viewers or anybody else to know before we wrap up here?
I'm trying to remember everything.
I'm trying to remember everything I discussed.
Just when you
Just that when you talk to a deaf person,
it's not about
it's not about what you think
they need.
they need.
It's about what they're telling you that they need
It's what they're telling you they need
from you
from you
to help us to communicate.
to help with the communication. So
That.
to help bridge that communication gap.
Yeah.
So people make false assumptions. Then you're saying people assume like, oh, I'll need to do something, or treat them a certain way that isn't actually what deaf people are looking for.
No,
Yeah, like
for me
for me
how I
personally,
communicate
how I
is
communicate is different from most deaf people.
Like I'm comfortable with
I'm very comfortable using captions,
Yeah.
some stuff.
and some deaf people
to have
maybe would prefer interpreters or writing notes back and forth. So there's a lot of different needs, and it depends on the individual.
Absolutely. So if a hearing person is just going about their day and they run into a deaf person, what should they do? Like what's your advice to be able to communicate with them?
Just be
Just be very straightforward
I'm not sure how to
and say that you don't know how to kind of communicate with them, and how can you help me communicate with you.
Yeah.
And should that be like in the form of writing it on your phone or mouthing it or?
I think it would be good to start with
I think it would be good to start with a note for sure.
Okay.
See what happens from there.
after start process stuff like
Because, like I said, every deaf person has a different preference, and normally they're pretty willing to help.
that.
Absolutely. Well, Nathan,
Well,
this was fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, this
Thank you
was
so
awesome.
much. And Kaylee, thank you so
Super cool
much for
opportunity.
interpreting.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, you're great.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me here.
Of course. See you next time.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you.